in the video. Maybe this wouldn't have happened if, if more people like me would have been heard along the way.
A Green Bay woman saying that this incident involving a Green Bay police officer might have been avoided had the department investigated her claim 7 years ago. Good evening, everyone. The woman telling Fox 11 she filed a complaint against the same officer in the video. That was in 2007. That officer, Derek Wicklund.
However, Green Bay City Attorney says there was no documentation to show that her complaint was ever investigated. Now, Fox 11 submitted a records request to the city for all of the complaints against Officer Wicklund, and late yesterday afternoon, the city handed those records over. Fox 11.
Well, Michelle, we've been digging through the facts, and what we found today is that, well, we found yesterday that since 2006, there have been 14 complaints against Officer Wicklund. 5 of them were citizens complaining Wicklund used excessive force. Today, we found out one of those complaints may not have been investigated. Tonight, we have balanced coverage.
Tina Malott says in March of 2007, she had a bad night and called the crisis center. 2 Green Bay police officers went to her apartment to check on her.
It was just a welfare check. It was nothing. I went home the same night. It was not a big deal.
Malott says she was roughly handcuffed and put in a squad car to go to the crisis center. She says the officers' actions caused bruising that lasted more than a week.
I wasn't a threat. They didn't handcuff me from my apartment all the way down to the car.
10 days after the incident, Malott filed a complaint with the Green Bay Police Department.
I filed the complaint. They did photographs, stuff, but I never heard anything afterwards.
Malott never followed up on the complaint.
I assumed that it was taken care of. I never heard anything afterwards.
We found Malott's complaint as part of our open records request into Officer Wicklund. However, there was no evidence that it was investigated.
This document was included, saying the complaint was being investigated. However, it was dated May 5th of this year, 7 years after the complaint was filed.
The electronic copy that was printed off repopulated and essentially auto-dated it when it was printed off.
City Attorney Tony Wakowitz was able to give us a copy of the original document dated April 2007. What he couldn't find was a resolution to the complaint.
Was this complaint investigated?
At this point, we're unable to tell whether it was investigated or not. There is no hard copy of anything in the file that indicates a final resolution. The only thing that we have is a notation in our internal affairs computer program that indicates that the final disposition was no policy violation.
Wakowitz says anyone who files a citizen complaint normally receives a letter or phone call indicating a resolution was reached. Malott says she never received anything.
Oh my God, why?
She also says she didn't know until now that the officer she filed her complaint about was the same officer from this video.
If more people like me would have been heard along the way, maybe this wouldn't have all happened.
Green Bay Police referred all of our questions to the city's attorney. However, I was able to ask Captain Bill Galvin how Wicklund's 14 complaints in 8 years compares to other officers. Galvin says he didn't have the average number of complaints for the 180 or so officers that work at the department. However, he says the department will crunch those numbers by hand. Galvin says that could take a while. The U.S. Department of Justice did a national study in 2002. It found for every 100 sworn officers, there were about 7 use of force complaints.